University for me was amazing. Beyond the qualification, it threw me into an environment where I brushed shoulders with people whose backgrounds were different to mine. Some of my closest friends today are the same people who I lived with during my first year when I was 18. But, and there's a big but, after graduation I was miserable. I had nothing on the horizon. I was so concerned with completing my degree to a high standard that I failed to plan what would happen after I actually got the grades that I wanted. There was a part of me that wanted the world to provide me with opportunity like it had done because of my good grades throughout my entire life. However, that ends when you finish your degree. Once your degree is over, the world is open and you're out of tutorial island. You're in the real dimensions of society, and society is not a nice place to be if you haven't got a plan and purpose. To add fuel to the fire of my internal existential dread, I went from living alone as a student. No matter how bad living alone as a student is, there are benefits to it. You have a certain autonomy of thought. I went back to live with my parents in a cramped council house that was already overcrowded before I got there. This made things difficult. I constantly felt terrible. I constantly felt like there was no space for me. And on top of that, as much as my parents are the nicest people in the world, they aren't the most motivating people in the world, and it made things difficult. Now, this isn't to say that it's their fault, it's my fault for being in that position. However, I had a choice to make. I had to just get a job to get out the house and kind of make some money. So I took the first job that I could get, which was a very, very demeaning role as a teaching assistant at my old secondary school. Now, this was literally my first time being employed. I had never had a job before this. Not that I hadn't tried, but getting a job as a young man without any connections or experience prior to having a degree is really hard, and I do sympathize with people. It's not a straightforward process. So began my 3-year stint in public sector employment.
To the Gulag. If you survive, you earn your freedom.
I spent 1 year as a teaching assistant. Then I moved out of London and trained to be a fully qualified teacher, and it was a very demeaning experience in many ways. Public sector work, I don't recommend it to anyone unless you are somebody who comes from money and money means nothing to you. There's very limited benefits to it. It's not worth the time you put in. However, you do gain relevant skills and experience, and the skills and experience you gain are around dealing with a lot of crap. Dealing with crap is perhaps the most important lesson in life. Being able to absorb loads of nonsense from people, filter out what actually matters, and deliver on that. That is what I really learnt from my stint in public sector employment. What actually ended up happening was I got a corporate job. And the corporate job I got, I started right at the bottom. I still got a pay rise because public sector pay is terrible. However, what really hurt me was that I spent 3 years in an industry which didn't pay me properly to only end up starting at the bottom of the corporate hierarchy in a position I could have got straight out of university. The whole point of this video is actually around what do you do to prevent wasting 3 years of your life like I did? How to come out of uni as a winner rather than a loser, and how to not feel like you've wasted your degree. So, how do you get a job straight out of uni that you can be happy with? Prohibit the taking of omens and do away with superstitious doubts. Then, until death itself comes, no calamity need be feared. Those are the words of Sun Tzu, one of the greatest generals of all time. Competence itself is a mindset. Everything can be learnt, and your own internal thoughts can sabotage you. Being afraid of rejection is the best way to get rejected. You have to set out clear objectives for what you want out of your future career path, and landing a good graduate job opportunity is a rather robotic process once you've done this. Applying for a graduate job begins when your degree begins. It is a process that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and most importantly, a lot of strategy. There's an element of luck involved, as with everything in life. And ultimately, to increase your chances of actually getting a good graduate job, you need to apply to as many as possible. Nobody wants to hear this, but graduate job opportunities are highly competitive. You're competing with many people, and a lot of the time you're filtered out automatically. So if you apply to 10 graduate jobs, statistically, you have a very limited chance of getting even one of them. However, if you apply to 100, you'd probably get like 2 or 3. This is an anecdotal statistic, but the chance of actually getting into any grad scheme based on a singular application, I'd say, is less than 5% for the average person. Now, if you went to Oxford or Cambridge, or if you have some really, really impressive CV, or if your dad's the CEO, that probably changes. However, for the average person at a mid-table university, you're looking at about a 5% chance. And if for whatever reason you're below that level of skill or qualification, then that chance is even lower. But it is never zero. You'd be surprised. People will get into grad jobs without meeting even the minimum requirements, despite hundreds of other people applying with better qualifications. Sometimes it's a game of being in the right place at the right time. The advice I'm giving you today I personally did not implement until after I was sick and tired of my job in teaching. If I did implement it while in my second year in uni or even my third year, I could have left the blocks at a more advantageous position. In fact, the amount of money that I've lost in actual earnings over the last 3 to 4 years because I started out in education rather than in a corporate job is over £50,000. To be honest, it's crazy how much of an impact that opportunity cost has, and if I knew what to do from day one, I would have been in a better position earlier on in my career. My advice is simple: apply to lots and lots of graduate schemes after university. Prioritize big name companies with a history of successful alumni, banking, the big four, technology, to give you some examples. Once you saturate those applications, move down a peg and go for companies that you're less inclined to work for, more commercial companies, or even some of the better public sector areas such as the civil service, which, to be honest, is a great place to start off your career. I'm assuming that the majority of you care about one thing, and that is your financial stability going forwards. So my advice to you is simple: apply, apply, and apply once again. Personally, I got a job at the Big Four while religiously applying. Before the offer, I had tens of rejections from companies far less desirable than the one I ended up working for. Now, I've done my time as a grad, and it is easier than ever getting work. In fact, the current role I'm in, I was headhunted for. So it's worth spending that time casting out that net. Can never discount the fish you will catch. You just have to stay consistent and robotic. Keep applying. Rejection after rejection. Keep applying. You have to keep rolling the dice. That's the only way to guarantee success. On a long enough timescales, each shot you take will lead to a goal in the back of the net. So, that's my advice to you. If you want a good career, work hard and spend time applying as if it was your full-time job. Don't mess around, and don't forget that the end goal is worth it, especially if you come from a less than advantageous background. If you want any further advice on interview techniques, on how to answer assessment questions, etc., how to lay out your CV, I'd be happy to help. Please comment down below. Furthermore, if any of the jargon doesn't make sense to you, like what the hell is the Big Four, I'd be happy to make a video on that. So please request down below in the comments, subscribe, and check out some of my other videos because I've got loads of stuff going. Thanks.